Hello and welcome to the Growing Healthy Families podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Haggerty. On this show, I interview the world's top health experts so that you can know with certainty what it takes to give your family a life of epic health and wellness.
As parents, we don't want to see our kids struggle. I knew that he had the potential. I knew that something needed to be done.
It was hard. We would get frustrated. We didn't know how to deal with it. I was more emotional about it.
Sure that, we're here. Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. Moms and dads, in this next episode of the Growing Healthy Families podcast, I have a major treat for you. So I actually am interviewing one of the people who has inspired me the most in the profession, a man named Dr. Chris Zaino. He is a chiropractor who happens to own the largest chiropractic clinic in the world out in Woodlands, Texas. His story is one that will compel and inspire each and every one of you. He was a natural competitive bodybuilder who was a Mr. America in 1992 and 98, on the road to a massive career in the fitness and health industry. And he had his life and his career and all of his plans derailed by what could have been a terminal illness. And in this episode, you're going to hear his story from nearly losing his life, losing all of the things that he worked for, believed in for his future, and going through what most of us would call hell, to getting his life back, to recovering, to living the life that he deserves, and now helping others to get the life that they should have had, right, as a chiropractor, but also now inspiring people through his work as a public speaker. Moms and dads, I want you to make sure you join in for this because it will inspire you, it will motivate you, it will uplift you, so that no matter where you're at today, when you get done listening to Dr. Zaino's story, it is going to lift up your spirit, you'll feel inspired, and you'll start realizing that your sole purpose is greater than what you ever could have imagined. Tune in, you're going to love it. Moms and dads, this is Dr. Scott Haggerty here with a super special guest, Dr. Chris Zaino, right here, the man you're staring at. Doc, how you doing today?
Doing awesome, Dr. Scott. Thank you so much, and everybody who's watching and listening. We'll give you a lot of value today. We promise.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. So, moms and dads, I'm gonna tell you, I have a very special reason for having Dr. Zaino on here on our podcast because he's been an inspiration for so many people. He's been an inspiration for us here in our podcast. And his personal story and his journey is one that has touched me to my heart for a very long time. And we'll dig deep into that. But there's just so much to what Dr. Zaino's mission here is that I wanted to make sure that moms and dads, that you get tons of value because he's going to fill you with inspiration and hope and really let you know a lot about his heart and why he's doing what he is today. So Doc, first, let's just dive right in, right? Like you are known to be a man of great faith, and a family man and a dad. And, so why don't you just, tell everybody a little bit about, your family and your background. And so everyone can get to know you a little bit.
All right. So, I have two boys. That's my Justice is 12 and Titus is 6. And they live in Utah with their mom. And I'm here in Houston. And so we have quite an interesting family dynamic because, I have to work here. But we make it work, and what I really enjoy about that part of it is, when I was building my practice years ago, when we were all together, it would be very easy to just do the grind, hustle, go to work, come home, and I was so tired that they would, I wouldn't play with toys with them. I wouldn't do stuff with them, or I'd play toys and fall asleep. So it became something because you always think when you see your children every day, you think, well, I have tomorrow. I have next week, I'll do it. When I feel better, I'll do it. And so you always kind of, one day leads to a year and 2 years. And so when I just only get to see them limited, like this weekend, Friday and Saturday, I'll fly to Utah and go to see them. I have 48 hours in it. And now it is like phone is off, 100% 48 hours present with them. And it's just like this crazy dad bash that we have. And so, if anybody's listening, mom and dads, if you're in a blended marriage or divorce or you travel, or just even if you see your kids every day, understand that, sometimes it took a little contrast in my life to realize, to become even more present in their life when I do see them. And our relationship has definitely grown.
That's so true. A few years ago, we had to make some similar decisions here in our practice. We're working a ton and growing the practice and building it, and life got really out of balance, and we had to look at it and rebalance the scales here to make time for the quality and a little more quantity time. And moms and dads, that's huge advice, huge advice. So Doc, obviously your faith is something that's always been a strong guide for you. How has this played a role in who you are today and your purpose?
Well, the last word was, well, you nailed it, purpose. Listen, and watch, I'm playing devil's advocate here, like whether there is a God or there is no God, right? Or whether someone believes and has a faith in a God or higher power or none, just the idea of the faith in something bigger and that you're here for a purpose and you're here on a mission causes you to wake up with a drive, right? With a desire, with a definitive purpose, with an obsession. And then if you could take that, you find this obsession. So for you and I, it was our practices. And the people, actually not our practices, it was the people of our practices we were obsessed with. Then you're waking up because the flesh, when you wake up, the flesh wants to hit the snooze button. But when, right in our mind, if we know there's someone, how about this? When we know there's someone, something, even to just a higher power degree that is counting on us, has chosen us, you follow what I'm saying? It creates an accountability that it's like where the glue of your commitment sticks to go serve, even when you don't feel like serving, to go serve when you don't feel good, to go, train yourself, personal develop yourself and learn outside, because you know that people are counting on you. And for me, a bigger God has chosen me to do so. So I really believe that just the fact that I believe that creates the environment, right? It's a formula that creates the environment for me to be focused, obsessive, and I say obsessive in a very good meaning fashion. Like like every athlete everybody who's successful or you admire was obsessive in their one area, and I really think in having that high purpose and faith is the part of the formula for that.
I completely echo that. It's that purpose driven, that focus that I think makes anybody who's passionate about helping people in the way that you and I are able to go and help at the levels necessary. Because it's service is something that requires a lot of perseverance on a day-to-day basis. One of the things that I do is I have reminders set in my phone. So every morning within a few minutes that I wake up, right? Because our practice is a pediatric and family practice. And every day I wake up, the very first thing that comes across is kids' lives are at stake, right? And it's that little motivation that reminds me that what's at stake when I get out of bed, and that I need to be at my best every day when I walk in the door. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Tons of value there. Tons of value there. So Doc, your story is one that is very unique and very rare, but I think is very special. I would love if you could take a few minutes and share your journey, obviously with your background, but how you were led to become a doctor of chiropractic.
Absolutely. And so in 1998, I won Mr. America, right? So I just imagine, so I look a certain way, I feel a certain way. I'm 21 years old at the time. I had my degree in exercise physiology from the University of Central Florida, and living in Orlando, I was also worked at Universal Studios. And you guys remember Xena, Warrior Princess, and Hercules? They would film in New Zealand and they would film in Orlando. So I got to be the trainer for them. The internet's coming up. I'm starting to write for the internet. I'm on covers of magazines. So for me, my entire identity was in the fitness realm and how I looked. And I'm just anchor that for a second. I'll get back to that. So everything was great. Years going by, training people, doing all these other things, writing. A couple years later, I thought I got like a stomach thing I thought I had, and I was going to the bathroom, and it never went away. It got worse and worse and worse, and I started bleeding every time I went to the bathroom. And then now I'm getting nervous, and then I played Google MD like a lot of people do. So I go on Google, I type in blood and stool, and then you see cancer. So my dad died of cancer when I was 21, and my grandfather died before I was born, the year before I was born. So I was like, wow. So, and this is you got to understand, this was my philosophy and view of thinking at that time. Well, my dad and grandfather got cancer, so it may be in the cards or in the genes. So, but not at 25 years old, 26 years old. And so what I did is I did something a lot of people do that's somewhat, and I'll put the ignorance on me, and ignorant is I disassociated, which means when you're facing something, uh, and this could be a physical issue, a financial issue, a relationship issue, a health issue, whatever. When you're facing something, you have to face it and go through it. You can't disassociate, which means is I'm just going to look the other way. It's like taking a parking ticket and throwing it on the ground, right? And I just got worse and worse and worse. And it got to the point where I couldn't hold my bowels in public anymore, and I was losing my bowels in public. And I'll tell you, the first time that happened, I was at a TJ Maxx. I would everywhere I would go, this physical issue started becoming emotional and spiritual. So I was able to understand that you cannot separate the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual of a human being. You can't. So when you're physically in any way, shape, or form not functioning correctly, or there's disease or hardship, emotionally you're drained, mentally, my life changes. There's people in pain that they're focused on left foot, right foot, like literally taking one step after the other. Like we take for granted what a lot of people in pain or suffering are going through. Like, so your whole life, you're putting focus on things that you never had a focus before. Like, is there a bathroom around here? I got to stop eating at this time. And if there is a bathroom, is it open, right? So all these factors I never had to think about in my life. And so the TJ Maxx bathrooms were closed, and I couldn't make it out of there. And I lost my bowels in front of about 40 people, and it was blood, it was mucus, and it was pretty scary. And that was kind of the moment, Dr. Scott, where I was like, what the hell happened to me? Like I know it was happening, but it was just the moment in slow motion where my identity was totally stripped from me. It was just like, what has happened to me? Like, here I am, TJ, reduced, impotent, invalidated, just scared, depressed. And I left, I went out the loading dock and went to the emergency room, and I was diagnosed with an incurable terminal disease called ulcerative colitis. It's autoimmune, so it means your body's immune system is attacking and eating itself from the inside out. I was on tons of drugs and prednisone and medication, you name it, none of which are working. Then I went to Dallas, Texas, Baylor, the best billion-dollar facility, low-dose chemotherapy, Remicade infusions. I got medically induced hepatitis from the drugs, getting treated for that, and organ rejection medications. Because if it could shut down your immune system, then it won't fight itself. But then just think about it. If I shut down your immune system, then there's a whole other Pandora's box that opens. So I went from about 230 pounds down to 158 pounds in about 4 months. Nothing's working. Then the only option at this point was surgery. And surgery would consist of removing my colon, having a colostomy bag, $6,000 worth of drugs for the rest of my life, sterility. They said I would never have children, and they don't even know if they can make it through the surgery because I was already on organ rejection medication, so that means my immune system was down. And if they're going to open you up or cut you, then the risk of infection is amazing. You have no defense. So who knows how long ICU and stuff would be. And so that was the only option. And a lot of times for people, that is the only option they have. Or they think they have. Let me rephrase that. And so I'm like, yeah, sure. I got to do whatever I got to do. I want to live. And then, I was flying home to see my mom, and she sent out that prayer email. And just like any other mother. Now, my mother at this time, she had lost my dad, and she had already lost 2 sons. Okay? So that's 3 amazing men in her life. This is a third son that would be passing away. And so this is freaking out, prayer email. And that's where her faith is so strong. And everybody sent back the email, hey, hope all goes well. We pray for the surgeon's hands. And then one person was different. He was my anatomy teacher from 10th grade. He goes, I want to see Chris when he's in town. So I went into town. I see my anatomy teacher. He's there. He's like, listen, you need to go see my doctor. He's a corrective care chiropractor. It's going to change your life. He'll find it. He'll show you what's going on. We'll find what's causing it, and you'll be good. Very nonchalant like that, Dr. Scott. So, imagine if you've been to Baylor Medical in a $1 billion facility and you had the top 4 doctors in the world, right? Or so to speak, helping you, you would think. So when someone says something like that, you're like, it's just like anybody else. Oh, thanks for caring. I thank you, but no thanks, right? He's like, no, you really need to go. I'm like, well, I appreciate it. I go, but I tried everything. And in that moment, Dr. Scott, I didn't realize that when I said I tried everything, see, a lot of times when we're going through a physical issue or a health issue or any type of struggling issue in our life, you'll never realize, because you're in it, you'll never realize that you actually slowly start to lose hope and become the victim. the fact that I said I tried everything automatically put me into apathy, indifference, loss of hope, and victimhood. Because like, hey, I did it. I did it all, right? So if I did it all, then this is the way it's going to be. And then he looked at me. He goes, well, you didn't do it all, and you didn't do everything, because if you did everything, you would have had your health. I was like, and like it woke me up. It wasn't that I was stupid or thought weird. It's like, holy crap, he's right, because I didn't realize how far down the the despair zone I've been. And so it just cracked open the ceiling just a little bit to see a little bit of light to give me enough time to at least say, okay, I'll go see this guy. You know, and it had to be soon, because it woke me up for a little bit. Not saying I was going to go back to the way I was thinking very shortly. So I went to see this guy, Dr. Roger. He was a chiropractor who had an office that was in a house, like, you know, like a house, old house transferred office. So I'm like, oh my God, you know. So I go in there, and he did a talk. So for me, he started with a talk, and the talk was about a half hour, and he explained to me what health was. See, I believed health was how I looked or how I felt, right? Mr. America, this and that. Not that it was how I'm functioning, because clearly if it was how you look, or if it's how you felt, or if you exercise, or if it's you eat right, then none of this would have happened to me. And what was frustrating, Dr. Scott, is here I'm having this incurable terminal disease. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I do my cardio, I work out, I eat clean, but yet there's lines at McDonald's and Sonic and Burger King, and those people are doing, and they're doing way better than I am. So it was so frustrating, because I realized I was on the wrong map. A lot of times we have a philosophy of what health is, and it might be the wrong map. And so when I realized the true map of health was, it's how you're functioning from the inside out, and you taught me, and you know, what controls function? The brain. Yeah, so here I am, as skeptical as I can be. What controls function? The brain. You know, it goes through the spinal cord. Yes. Goes through nerves. Yes. I cut the nerve. What? You die. You cut the head off. You die. So basic. Like I couldn't call him out. I couldn't say, yeah, that's that. I couldn't say, yeah, that was crap. No, I was like, yeah, right. And then when I went back and I saw my X-rays, that's when I saw, for me, because he had taken pictures of my spine. That was his way of assessing me. I saw a blind spot, and I saw a massive, if your spine should be straight up and down, you know, 0 degrees, meaning there's no deviation. It was 20 degrees off to the left, big curvature in my lower spine. And it was a blind spot. So you see, a lot of times everybody who's listening, whether it be, again, in your financial life, your relationship life, your business life, or your health life, if there is something that's not the way you want it to be, and you're pulling your hair out trying to figure out the cause, you got to understand there's a blind spot there. And the thing is, with blind spots, you don't see your blind spots. That's why it's a blind spot. So this is why having a coach, having like Dr. Scott in your corner, like you need someone that you could trust, an outside, honest, non-biased opinion to call you out, or show you a technology to say, hey, that's a problem that you didn't know that was there. So I saw it was there. Again, being skeptical was, okay, yeah, so what am I going to get better? And he goes, well, as long as you have that problem there, your body's not in the environment to be able to heal itself. And he's like, and then he points at me, he's like, and this is the worst bedside manner that I personally take upon myself and act the same way now because of this. He points at me, he's like, when you choose to correct your problem that you have that's affecting your life and your future, just like saying like, hey, buddy, this ain't my problem. This is all you. Because when you choose to correct that problem, then your body will be in the environment to be able to heal itself. And he's like, the day and the hour that you're asking me when you're going to get well, the day and the hour, listen, that's totally up to you, your body, and God. And he goes, but you will get better if you don't quit on yourself, no matter how long it takes. Because that's right. Don't we do that in life, Dr. Scott? We'll be like, how many times someone might go to your office and be like, listen, you know, our son or a child has something going on. And in their mind, they might say, you know, we'll try this for 2 weeks. And I'm like, where'd 2 weeks come from? Like for me, I'm like, I'll give this 2 months. Where did I get 2 months from, Dr. Scott? I had nothing to base it off of. It was like I'm thinking like I felt that 2 months should have gotten me a certain result that I believed I should have got for the work, time, and effort I put in. So like a lot of times when we put limitations and deadlines on organic biological things, it's, of course, we're going to get frustrated. Just saying, I want to, just like I'm going to build this business, and it might take a year. But if I said 2 months, I'd be frustrated. So I put a limit. I'm going to give this 2 months. And when he told me that, no matter how long it takes, it was so right because, yeah, I wish I could tell you a week later I was well. No, I was bleeding bad every day. And so it's very tough when you still see the manifestation of what you don't want. It's tough to get hope and stay positive when you see the circumstance every day. But we knew we were correcting the cause. So about 3 months later, I was off half the medication. That's 3 months later. 5 months later, I'm off all the medication. And then at 7 months, the blood had totally stopped. My body healed itself from incurable terminal disease called ulcerative colitis. Isn't that cool?
Thank God for that. That's amazing. That's
And then,
amazing.
and through that, Dr. Scott, so people are like, okay, so what happened? Well, I had an experience in my life now, right? I have an experience that's very deep rooted, a new sense of purpose, and you want to tell people about it. So I went back to school and I became a doctor of chiropractic. And that's why I did what I did.
It's such a powerful story. And moms and dads, I want you to really take what Dr. Zaino said and process that for a moment, right? I mean, he was in a situation of complete desperation and really felt like he had tried everything on the verge of losing hope. And somebody spoke into him and said, hold on, don't give up yet. There's still hope out there. And the most important thing is that for a moment in time, he was willing. He opened up to hear what someone had to said, someone who cared enough to pour into him when he felt desperate. And then he took action on that. And then that action, even though it was not the immediate result, was one that, because he was put into a state where his body was able to heal, his body began the process slowly but surely of dealing with and beginning to heal from a problem that, even though the symptoms presented at one point in time, the problem was building and accumulating for many years before it went over the edge because it was a tipping point event, right, Doc?
Yes, yes. And but we didn't even realize it. It seemed to me that this thing happened kind of overnight or within a
Yep.
couple of days. But this is something that, I mean, for me to have that curvature in my lower that damaged my nervous system, we're talking 5, 6, 7 years old it started. And and then finally the dysfunctional or the crisis phase shows up at the very end in my mid-20s.
Yeah. And that's something that I think is really critical that a lot of people realize is that, most of the time when our health has gone down the road of us becoming sick, it's been this process of years of going down this road, right? But it's the ability to get the body into a state of healing, like Dr. Zaino did, that got his body to a place where it was able to start the process and build momentum. And what you're really talking about, which I think is critical, is that healing is a process, not an event. It takes time. It takes momentum. And what you were doing with your care plan was you were building momentum and keeping your body in that state where it was able to begin the process of healing so that his body was able to go and do what it had not been able to do on its own because his brain and his nervous system and his spinal column all began to communicate, connect, and coordinate so that he can get into a state with the best shot to heal. Right, Doc?
It was the way to heal because that's how the body heals 100%. And I didn't know this, but even though and you can understand, I had degrees and stuff like that, and I got all the answers right in school. But here's the thing: in school, I got it right on a test, but getting it right on a test doesn't mean that you know how to apply that wisdom and knowledge.
Yep.
It makes sense. And then I think you're right. Like when you explain that, Doc, no one could. It's irrefutable. It's just how the body functions, heals, and operate. And I definitely do want to stress that time thing. You're so right. It is a process that is not dictated by human belief.
Yep.
Meaning that, it doesn't care if you think it's not working. It's
right.
like gravity doesn't care whether you fear it or not. It's an act. It's a law. It's a universal law of life. And so that's why I tell a lot of patients in the beginning. For me, I said, listen, if you have to borrow my confidence in your ability to heal in the beginning, then do so until you see your momentum, until you see, because everybody in life, well, one of the my stepdad, he was 88 years old, evangelized all over the world, and at 88 years old, he's dying. I'm like, listen, you want to get the wisdom, right? I'm like, what is some of the greatest wisdom you could give me that you've realized in life? He's like, real quick, he goes, you know what, the toughest thing in life is to make a decision. And he's like, because we're so afraid of making the wrong decision, the right decision, that we don't make decisions, or we stay paralyzed. And I think when it comes to health, especially when it's your kids, because now you got emotions and biases involved, and you're scared and there's fear, it's tough to make a decision. And when you go to the medical, and they want to do drugs and surgery, it's like, well, what if and they're telling you, well, if I don't do that, my son could have a seizure and then die. And like, so it's all this fear.
Mhm.
And you feel the fear, but then you hear something like you just said, Dr. Scott. And even though you're in fear, it makes sense when you feel a hope. But sometimes that fear pulls you right back and says, oh, I know. So you're going to go see him? Or, but what happens if they don't do this drug, and they could have another seizure, and they could do this, or they could whatever, like, and the fear is, a fear is like an act of terrorism of the brain, literally. But when that part of you is like, out of all the people, Dr. Scott, it's like, no matter how much fear there was that part of me that's like, this makes sense and it feels good.
Mhm.
And that was it. So that's the reason why I chose that route over the surgery. And we got to understand this too, when it comes to making a decision. So when you start to see the results, you made the right decision, and then you have momentum, and it's fun, it's no problem. But until that point, let's look back. Let's look at that. When it comes to health, and you have to make a decision, your life in that moment splits into like two parallel universes. So if I went for the surgery, I would have been in a wheelchair, right? I would have been no colon, irreversible, drugs the whole my life, probably dead, not dead, horrible. Like if I was alive, my Instagram would say colitis survivor, or like, because my identity now would be the person who I was given this disease, and I fought through it, and like, just I've been at church. I've seen people who love being sick because it's part of their fighting story of hero's journey. It's like, no, so like they became a victim of it. Versus, today, in the last 16 years, every single blessing I've had in my life, financially, practice-wise, having two beautiful sons, and I was told I would never be able to have. Speaking to you right now, talking to everybody who's listening, all of that, helping thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of lives, traveling the world, writing books, being on TV, you name it, all of that would have been erased. It would have been in thin air and never would have happened. And here's the problem when it comes to decisions. If I went for the surgery, I never would have known any better. Like the life I lived the last 16 years, I never would have known better. And when you don't know better, you can't even feel bad about it, and you can't even regret it. Yep. So when I speak with fear a little bit in my voice, going, holy cow, holy crap. If I did not make that decision to work with that chiropractor, holy smoke. Like my son, I don't even, life as I know it wouldn't exist anymore. How crazy is that? And it all came down to one decision, Dr. Scott, and me being really committed to it. It wasn't about positive mental attitude for me or willpower, because I was scared. So people are like, oh, how do you're really, I'm positive now because I'm grateful and appreciate, but it's like, I was scared, and I felt like crap. I was scared. I saw blood every day. So it was, like I said, the law works whether I believed it. And I'm so glad I made that decision, because the alternative would have sucked, and I never would have known the life I had today. So there's many people that are listening and watching, for yourself and for your children. You have no idea the potential that you could possibly reach in your life. And it's probably far greater than you ever thought imaginable. But because you don't know what it is, you can't regret it. So you start to make decisions in the now based off fear versus what innately, internally makes sense and feels good to you on what to do.
I so love what you said there, because as you're talking about those exact points, it actually brought me back to a conversation that I was just having yesterday. So I've got, our practice, we see a lot of kids with neurodevelopmental challenges, right? From ADHD, speech delays, autism, you name it. And there was a mom who I was talking to, and her son's relatively new in care, and he's got some significant speech delays, and she wants so badly to have him get to a point where he's functioning at his best and, catch up to his peers. And we talked so much about the process of the brain needs time to heal to be able to go and work at its absolute best. And there's a little boy that I've been taking care of now, a little boy named Paul, for a year plus. And he came in and he was a kid who had significant sensory issues. They were looking at, the spectrum diagnoses. And when we first started taking care of him, Paul's sensory issues were so bad I couldn't even touch his hair. I mean, we chased him around the room just to be able to go and get 1 second so that we can begin to adjust him. And, he was totally nonverbal and way behind. And, his mom came in with him the other day, and Paul is speaking in full sentences. He is communicating at a near age appropriate level now because his mom really committed to the fact that it is a process. His brain had so much it had to heal through to get him to a point where he can start living life like he was supposed to. And his mom, when the other little boy, Anthony, when I was talking to his mom, she said almost exactly what you said. She said, I'm so glad that you told me that story because right now I need to borrow your certainty because right now I see changes in him and we're building momentum, but it's just so good to hear the hope and that there is hope for a better life because of the decision that we made. And so I thought of that as soon as you said that because it's the stuff like that when I hear those things from our patients here and from people like you that inspires me and helps me to remember the purpose. But for moms and dads, when you're listening to this, sometimes that's what it is. Sometimes it's borrowed hope and certainty so that you can get yourself on the track because there's people like Dr. Zaino, there's people like myself, there's people like the parents that we care for who sometimes we have to help each other through and just, persevere so that we can get to the place where we're able to get to the life that we want to live, right?
Amazed. Couldn't have said it better. And Jim Rohn, it reminds me of a topic that Jim Rohn used to talk about. He's like, in life, he's like, there's miracle workers. And he's like, and this is how you know you met a miracle worker. Meaning, when it comes to reading books, well, how many books am I supposed to read? Well, you read as many until. The word until. They live by the word until. Well, how long do I need to see you, Scott, Dr. Scott? Until. It's so that when you realize in life that you will never stop pursuing your goal and your vision or to see that child get well. So when do you stop putting effort in? Until he's whole, right? Until he speaks that full set. So it's just such a beautiful thing. It's just something where you could just adopt the until, take time out of the equation as far as yes, we know healing takes time, but a lot of times people are like, well, isn't 2 years enough time? Isn't 3 years enough time? How about if it took 30 years?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be worth it? Imagine if that child spoke a full sentence in 16 years from now, from where he came from. Wouldn't that 16th year have been a miracle?
Yep.
Right. So please, this is not only in health, but in just this life you have. Understand that I think a lot of times as human beings, we get scared, we get frustrated, and we give up right before we struck gold, right before the diamonds, the acres of diamonds, right before we hit the acres of diamonds. That was really the promise you were given the whole time.
Amen. So true. And the depth to which you went there, I appreciate because I think a lot of people, struggle to feel like they're going to be able to go and pull their way out. And, they can feel like the weight of the world is on them and they feel like they don't have hope. And it's moments like this when people are struggling that they need someone to, speak in, help them, to inspire them, and to realize that there's always hope until you stop trying.
Yes.
And it's so true. And that's, what you see in your practice, right? Like it's about people who've been searching oftentimes to try and find help. And, one of the things I wish to hear change at some point in time is that many people come into our offices as last resort, right? And it really needs to be first resort, because if you were to look at how do we help to deal with the master controlling systems of the body first, and then start going down the other routes, well, then it would be the right order, right? If you examine what controls everything and make sure that's operating at its best. So that's where we all need to be starting right from birth, because it's so critical that our nervous system functions the way that it should, because we live our life through it, right, Doc?
Yes. Oh, 100 million %. It's, your life experience, what you experience in life is all through the nervous system. So right now, Dr. Scott, what I want to show, when I'm touching this table right now, my finger is not telling my brain what it feels. It's just sending a bunch of neurological impulses, and my brain is the actual thing that integrates it and comes up with the meaning of that. Right.
Mhm.
So it's like everything is expressed through the integration of the brain and the nervous system. Life, as you know, every sense, every emotion, it all is there. So you take all your skin and your muscles and your bones and everything off, and it's just your brain and spinal cord, like, and you're floating around like a jellyfish. Like, yeah, that's you would still experience everything you're doing now.
Amen. So Doc, I want to fast forward
Yeah.
because you've built what is probably the largest chiropractic practice in the history of the profession. You have returned to bodybuilding,
Mhm.
and you're going back after living your purpose. And so I was looking at a little bit of your bio here, and I see that you won your IFBB Pro card in 2016
Yeah.
at the Mr. Universe. So you were able to resume your bodybuilding career. And what did that feel like to be able to get back on stage and to do that again?
Yeah. So, and here's another. These are all little life lessons I learned that you don't have to have a rational goal in life. You could have irrational goals, but if it brings you joy, pleasure, and it's something that you want to do it. So
Mhm.
here I'm a doctor. I have a successful practice. I have this family. It's absolutely irrational and stupid and ridiculous. You name all the bad names you could say, but I wanted to do it because I didn't have closure in that area of my life, meaning that, I got sick when I was on the top, right? And doing great. And that was something that I really, really enjoyed and loved, and it was taken away from me. And even though, like, when I got healthier and I still worked out and stuff like that, but one of my doctors, my associates, competed, and I was like, I was eating raw at the time, so I was about 160 pounds on purpose, not because I was sick. Just eating. And, I think that was good. It was one of the best things I did as well. And I'm like, let me see if I still got it.
Mm.
And because see what happens is, even though you said these, and I appreciate that, buddy. I did build an amazing practice, but even in life, you could build. If you're sitting there going, well, it's easy for him to be positive. He built this amazing practice. No, like when you do something long enough, you start to get a little bored. Plain and simple. I don't care if you built the greatest anything in the world, or you have the greatest marriage in the world. If you keep on doing the same monotonous routine things, you're like, what's next? What's next? What's next? So as human beings, we're always seeking to grow, contribute and grow, contribute and grow. And so I wasn't growing anymore in any area. Like, it's like my practice is stable or going down, right? It's like, so, and that's the tough part at the top. When it starts to go down, it's like I'm losing did I peak? I'm losing. And so I needed something in my life that I could do, a hobby, something that I could grow and improve on, because we always like knowing we're winning or we're growing.
Mhm.
So I gave it a try. I won a couple shows, and I went to the universe, and I got my pro card. I did one pro show and called it that. But it was great, man. It was I'm so glad I did it, because the feeling of winning that thing, and my family was there, and I felt so good and so happy and so accomplished, that it was just it would again. If I didn't make the decision to put that work in, I would have missed out on a very good experience in my life that really then propelled and still helped me in other areas of business and life that I could then pass on to other people.
I think that's so critical what you said too, because it is easy to allow life to get stagnant and to stop challenging yourself and just kind of get into the place where things are okay, but then you stop growing as a person. And we were talking in the pre-talk, we were talking a little bit about just bodybuilding, and because I've done some competitive bodybuilding, and one of the things I think that I love so much about actually getting into competition sports like bodybuilding, it's all individual,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't even matter in a lot of cases where you place. It's going through the process and the journey of what it takes, because whether you take first or 15th, it's the fact that you committed to the act, you put the work in, and then the moment that you get on, even before you get on stage, the fact that you got there, the process that you went through shows you what you're capable of, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'll sum it up for you, and this is how we could take this concept to life. Yeah, you're right. It's not the placing at all. It's the fact that you completed the circle. And let me rephrase that. You made an agreement with yourself and you kept it. Everything in your life that you feel that you might have failed at, it's because you made an agreement and you broke it, not with that person, you broke it with yourself. That diet that didn't work, you broke an agreement with yourself. And let me tell you, the worst person you could ever break an agreement with, because it's the most important relationship, is a relationship with yourself. So when we start breaking agreements with ourselves, then we build a habit or the story that where people don't follow through, right? Oh, it's another diet I'm not going to follow through with. So you start because so how do we remedy this? Just make a decision. Just make a pact with yourself, your soul, and say, listen, when I make a decision to do something for myself, because you'll do it for other people, right? We know you're capable. Like you'll inconvenience yourself. You'll let people walk all over you, and you'll be there for them and all this other stuff. But when it comes to yourself, you put yourself last. So why don't you put yourself, when you do make a decision for your health or a relationship or your business or your job, just say, you know what, I'm making this decision. I'm making this promise to myself, and I'm not going to break that promise with myself. And that's how you restore self-value, self-esteem, confidence, worthiness in yourself to complete the circle of what you set out to do.
It's so true. And a lot of people who've never been down that road don't understand what completing the circle feels like, right?
Right.
And so much of success is not about getting to the goal. It's the feeling that you associate with accomplishing the goal,
It
right?
totally is. It's a win. It's a major win.
It's true. I remember, I told my wife that, the day that I got on stage for my very first show, right? And I'd been a competitive athlete my entire life, right? Football and wrestling and, had seen success in all of those things. But it was the completing the agreement, getting on stage and achieving something that was all me, right? Stepping on stage and completing that one thing that I told my wife when I got done, it taught me what I was capable of, right? It took away my own perceived limits and made me realize I was capable of achieving greater things because I'd followed it through from beginning to end. And moms and dads, that is one of probably the biggest and most important things that any of us can realize is it's that commitment and the follow through so that when you get there, you feel success. And it's something that a lot of us, as we get into adulthood, we forget about the need to follow that through and to continue and to see growth and to feel success. And it doesn't have to be huge victories, right? It doesn't have to be a bodybuilding show, doesn't. It just has to be set small things that you can accomplish to then reach towards a next goal and the next goal to keep yourself moving forward, right, Doc?
Yeah, I mean, this could even be done on the micro level, but it's just awareness, meaning that the awareness is this. I'll give it to you right now. You know what? Woke up this morning, I did my cardio, win, right? So I completed my intention. So we're talking like when you could start auditing your day and see it at a micro level that you're making, you already have plenty of circles. See, the thing is it's all an illusion that you're not a completer because you complete a lot of stuff every day. So when you start to say like, oh, I did my morning cardio, I did my prayer and meditation, I did this, I did that, I had an appointment I had to go before this. Close loose. I'm on this. So you see, close this loop. So these are promises and agreements we made and we kept them. So even on a micro level on a daily basis, everybody's like, you're thinking this big goal because it's all the little micro closed loops that add up to the big goal anyway. And then just the big goal anyway is all a big illusion because when you hit the big goal, you're on top of one mountain and then you see there's 70 other mountains that get your attention that you want to go for anyway. So it's the micro daily agreements with yourself. And if you break an agreement with yourself, forgive yourself, but take responsibility. I mean, like if I made an agreement with myself and I didn't keep that agreement, that means I take full responsibility of the ramifications and the consequences that may occur from that. And that means I can't blame anybody else because it's very easy to be like, well, like today, we had a little time zone issue and that was my fault. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, it was my fault, right? And it's like, but if I said, oh, sorry, and then I just broke the agreement, it's like, I would have missed out. My consequence would have been not able to have this experience with you and everybody on here. So it's like when you take 100% ownership, and that goes back to my health thing, when he pointed his finger at me and said, and he's pointed I couldn't be a victim because you cannot be a victim and take responsibility at the same time. A victim puts out responsibility and saying, oh, it was all these other people or consequences or genetics or whatever. And when you realize that there used to be a quote I used to tell myself, like, no one's coming to save me. I am the saving grace here. I am the one who could save myself. No one's come to save me. And the resourcefulness that comes out of the human being and the human spirit when they realize they're backed in a corner and they're the only ones that can get out, that's when the greatest of human things happen. So when you realize, wow, I take full responsibility over everything. I own up to everything. And when I do break this agreement with myself or others, um, even if I got a flat tire, you know, whatever thing that even seems out of my control, I still take personal responsibility for.
Yep, that's gold. That's gold because so many times you hear everyone making excuses and not wanting to go and own up, and that's huge. Moms and dads, take that to heart, right? Be a self-analyzer and recognize that we all fall short, but we need to start taking responsibility every single day to make sure that we are owning up to what we do Thank you for listening to the Growing Healthy Families podcast, the world's #1 source for health education. Make sure to go to iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a review. Make sure to follow us on social media at the links listed in the show notes, and let us know what area of health you are struggling with, so we can get you and your family on the road to epic health.